Namaskaram. Welcome everybody to the Raja Yoga teachings, part of the 4 Yoga training course at Arya Marga Yoga Institute here in Himachal Pradesh, the Himalayas. I'm Roshan Mohandas and I welcome you to join us for these teachings. Sutra 4 of Chapter 1, the Samadhi chapter. Vritti Swarupya Mitaratra. What does this mean? Literally, as a sentence, it simply means at all other times, the self is the ongoing perception. That's it. So when I ask, who am I? I am at this moment whatever thought, sensation, perception is going on between my body senses and my mind. Whatever senses I'm getting with my 5 senses, my eyes, ears, nose, and so on, the sounds, what I'm seeing, all of this, the 5 senses, whatever I'm receiving at this moment, and whatever thoughts or emotions are going on in my mind in this moment, the collection of that is what I am in this moment. The next moment might be something else. The next moment might be a thought, another feeling about, example, who am I? But that's in the next moment. And there are other feelings, senses going on in that moment too, when this question is going on of who am I? So at any given point of time, if there are thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations running around in the mind, and the mind is identified with these, then at that time the mind believes the self to be that. That is who I am. I am the one who is going to die. I am the one who is hearing. I am the one, and so on. The body is a tool. It is not the self. The self experiences through the tools of the body and the mind. The body and the mind are borrowed. The body is borrowed from the elements and the compounds that make up the universe. The mind borrows its sentience from the thing that we call the self or pure consciousness. So the ego mind that we usually call ourselves is a small part, a borrowed part of the real self. And the real self is in the background of all this. It is the canvas against which all this is projected. You take away the projections and what remains is the real self. That is why verse 3 establishes you in the real self. When we stop the non-self-based identification, misidentification of the self with the tool which is the body, the tool which is the mind. That is not who I am, that is not who you are. And the misidentification of the self with that ongoing mind or body happens because of habit, are such a strange thing. Good habits lead to enlightenment. Bad habits lead to ignorance in the path of yoga. So misperception is a bad habit, but it's just a habit. That is because of the intellectual mind. We are living today, all of us are living in an intellectual world. Education, the world where without education you cannot even get a job. Words as symbols. are how we do everything today. It's a symbolic world of language, intellect, science, and so on. In this intellectual world, we are overusing a certain part of the mind. This part of the mind then says, I am the self, because the other real self in the background, we have no habit of seeing it, of seeing that real self, except in moments of epiphany, ecstatic moments. So if we increase our ecstatic moments through dance, through singing, through meditation, through making love, through having friends, anything, reading a great book, if we increase our moments of ecstasy, we are increasing the time that we spend in the real self. And then we build up the good habit of being established more in that real self. And then the real self simply reveals itself completely. And that is what we should try to attain with the lesson given to us from verse 4, which is, at all the other times when the mind is not fully absorbed, then the self is always misidentified with whatever thought, emotion, sensation is going on in that moment. How does the ego mind replace the real self as the misidentified self? I don't have to be sad about dying if myself is not limited to the body and the mind. I don't have to take myself so seriously if I'm always going to be experiencing in this life or another life, this form or another form. As we said before, the mind is a subset of the self, the ego mind, the one that I call myself. My memories, my feelings, my thoughts, my brain, the mind. The sentience of this mind, the thing that we call consciousness of the mind, self-awareness, self-consciousness, is a borrowed aspect of a much larger, purer, fuller consciousness. The proximity, the nearness of this cognitive aspect of self, self-identification, self-awareness, which the mind borrows from the self. It makes it very close to the self. And so, if we keep using the mind, then it is very easy for us to deceive ourselves that we are this mind and forget the self. This is why it is easy for the borrowed mind to deceive itself that it is the thing that it was borrowed from. The book is not the library. The book is borrowed from the library. The mind, our personal mind, is like a book which is borrowed from the library, and it has forgotten that there is a library. So then the only book that exists is this book, if there is no library. So that is like the ego mind thinking that I am the complete self. The book from the library thinking it is the library. So when we return the book to the library and spend more time in the library, rather than more time with just this one book, then we know the true nature of the self. And this is what the experience of that yoga is, when we step away from the projected self into the real self. This is when we can practice absorption and stop the misidentification of the self. Then we have true control over our lives, because for the first time we truly know ourselves.